Good evening. Good evening. I'm Larry Souter, and welcome to Stories of Amazing Grace. We're coming to you from Bixler Chapel at the Madison Church of Christ in Madison, Tennessee. Thank you for joining us online. Some are listening by way of radio and for this live audience. Glad that you're here. And if you'd like to be part of this audience, come see us first Wednesday of the month, Madison Church of Christ, Bixler Chapel, and we're glad to have you. Well, our theme scripture comes from Romans 8:38 through 39. I'm sure that nothing can separate us from God's love, not life or death, not angels or spirits, not the present or the future, and not powers above or powers below. Nothing in all creation can separate us from God's love for us in Christ Jesus our Lord. Well, tonight's guest is Sandy Jones. She woke up one morning as usual, but within 24 hours, she was paralyzed from the waist down. Sandy describes herself as a strong-willed individual who enjoyed riding her motorcycle. She lives by herself and is assisted with her mobility with the help of two Great Danes, and they're with us tonight. Sandy says God has been at work in her life, and if it will help others, she wants to share her story. And you'll hear her story right after this.
The illness just invaded her overnight. It didn't give any warning. One day we're out on a boat having a ball and going wherever we want to go. And then she falls out on the floor. And the whole life changed from that day forward for both of us. For both of us. Sandy is one of the most loving, caring people I've ever known. The strength is so deep within her. The caring that she has for people is very deep. I don't know that I could do what Sandy has done through all of this. The doctors didn't think Sandy would do what she has done. I'm amazed by the strength that she has, the caring that she still tries to take care of so many people in the shape she's in. God is her willpower. She was always at church. She was in women's classes. She always wants to do something for somebody all the time.
How she made you better?
Just being my friend. We listened to each other. We cried together. When this happened, I went to the hospital and crawled in bed with her and just sit and cry. Nobody knows the depth of this except the ones that have been front and center. Johnny, who has passed on, I've tried to be here every chance I get to help her. My girl, my girl. And then it's so rewarding to see the steps that she makes. And I mean the steps, the walking, that she was never supposed to do, ever. She was going to be in a wheelchair, and that was it. She proved us all wrong. She had very bad thoughts, which most people with this disease that goes this far with the disease have the negative, wanting to live. They don't want to live. And Sandy wants to live, or she wouldn't have came this far.
And this foot, I can actually bring 3 toes up and my foot will come up some. It doesn't go down well. And this one, I've learned with the core, with the brace, I drive with the heel pushing down on it.
Yeah.
So, and if I climb stairs, I have to do them like sideways where my feet fold up on them. like on the boat when I get back in from the water or from the swimming pool. And when they give me shots, I say, that side, because I don't feel it.
You don't feel it at all.
Please make welcome Sandy Jones.
Come, 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 step, walk, step, lady, walk, okay, now let mama sit, now Thor, down, lady, come, no, right here.
That deserves some applause again. Thank you for being with us. Well, I looked up the definition. It says it's a rare neurological condition caused by inflammation of your spinal cord, often results in sudden symptoms such as muscle weakness, pain, bladder dysfunction. It has several possible causes. Some people recover from the symptoms and resulting complications, while others do not. That's the definition, but you have experienced it and you have had some great progress with the help of your friend Corky, which we saw earlier. So how did it all begin? It was an instant type thing that happened?
Yeah, my late husband Johnny and I had been in the Keys, fishing, riding bikes, horses, and we had to come home for a few things, and I had a business of my own, and got up that morning to go visit, see how all my kids were. I started having some real hot pain in my back, and I thought, that doesn't feel right. Got dressed, went on to the car, and then it got worse, and it was like a squeeze. They call it a squeeze, and it goes around your body, and it's like it takes all of your life. I thought I was having a heart attack, so I made it back into the house, called my husband, and he said, call 911. I can't get there in time, so I did. By that point, I could hardly speak, and they stayed on the phone with me until the ambulance got there. They came in. I told them that I could walk to the gurney, and I did. My knees felt real buckly. Got out, got inside. They took me to the closest hospital, and inside I went. The problem is that transverse myelitis is so rare that not all doctors even know about it. They may have heard it, but they didn't study it. And that, in this case, that's what happened in the ER that I was sent to. To have immediate care is very, very important, like a stroke. I should have been put on mega steroids right then. It was not.
What did they think it was initially?
They did a CT, and they said, well, you've got a bad back. And I said, well, I know that. Riding horses and everything of my lifestyle, that's yes, but this is not what it is, doctor. And he said, well, I don't see any ruptured disc, and I just see, and he said, can you give a urine sample? And I said, yes. Walked to the bathroom, walked back. In the process of a few hours being there, my bladder had already stopped working and was retaining. And the pain was very bad, and I started asking them to please cath. it was retaining a lot, and I couldn't feel my right foot. So he comes in and he says, well, your symptoms are all over the board, and we're going to send you home and follow up with specialists. And I said, doctor, something is inside of me taking my life. He said, well, I'm not keeping you just because you think you should stay. And I said, sir, I'm not a person to want to be in the hospital, but I'm telling you there is something wrong. He goes out, he sends the release form and a wheelchair, and he sends me home with a catheter with a leg bag and to follow up with urology and neurology. So we get in the truck. By then, I can't stand on this right leg. But when a doctor says, you know, there's really nothing wrong with you, go home, take these pain meds, go check in with some specialists. So we got there at the house, and by then I'm already having spasms, and my legs would extreme out like the Exorcist movies that you've seen. And I had to scoot into the house on my bottom. So through the night, I'm laying there, and my pain is horrible. And I know that something's taking my body over, but I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to be okay tomorrow, but how am I going to get in to see these specialists? Something's not right. Pain got worse. I prayed. I prayed and prayed. And I'm not a person that thinks that, oh, you know, poor me. It's like they said I was going to be better, so I should be better. This time, it wasn't. And God, He told me to go to Vanderbilt. He said, you need to go to Vanderbilt. And it was inside, He told me this. I woke my husband up, and I said, you've got to take me to Vanderbilt. So by then, I couldn't even walk to the car. It was quite comical, us getting me out. He tried to put me on a blanket and slide me out. He said, okay, put your feet on my feet, I'll dance you out. That didn't work. And at that time, I had a French Mastiff puppy, and he thought it was fun to try to get on the blanket. We got to the truck, and it was bad. We pulled into Vanderbilt. He goes in, they come out. At that point, they just got me in there fast, and at that point, I was a code without knowing it. They did spinal taps. They did MRIs, which was not done at the other hospital, and it took MRIs to see what was going on. They didn't know what it was, but they knew what was happening within 2 hours. At that point, I already had a 7.5-inch lesion on my spinal cord, and it was close to taking my breathing ability. So everything was stat, and they started steroids. Steroids, they said, you'll be better tomorrow. And I thought, well, good. We can get on out of here. I'll be okay. 4 o'clock, the next morning, I wake up. They had drugged me pretty heavily. And I see Johnny sitting in a chair. He's asleep. And I'm trying to take inventory. Well, I couldn't take inventory because I couldn't feel anything. My body was completely not belonging to me. It wasn't there. I tried to turn in the bed. I couldn't turn in the bed. I tried to move. I couldn't move. And I'm laying there, and I'm like, this can't be happening. This just can't be happening. And I told God, I said, I can't do this. How am I going to do this in my lifestyle? My lifestyle is doing and going and adventurous. I can't do this. How will I do this? And the next round of doctors came through, about 7. My improvement wasn't good enough. They offered plasmapheresis, which was sort of new at that point in time for certain things. And it's where they put ports into the heart and they will pump out your plasma and they will clean it and put some back in, and they'll put other plasma in with it. What it does, it takes out the antibodies. The antibodies were attacking my spinal cord. That was the problem. So they said there's a lot of risk. I said, what have I got to lose? Let's do it. So they started that morning, and I stayed in Vanderbilt for 7 days, 4.5 to 5 hours a day, where they continued to take the plasma out and take the antibodies out. And it did start taking a stop. So at that point, I can't move, I can't do anything, and they introduce a wheelchair, and I'm looking at that and I'm going,
That's not for you.
And at that point, my bladder had failed, and so did the bowels, the colon, which is a common thing that this disease takes out. And therapy was the next move to send me to Stallworth. I stayed in Vanderbilt for 3 months. They said that in 3 months was my window to get as much back as I could. My brain needed to start talking to the part that it forgot about already, because the transverse goes across, and the myelitis strips all the myelin and the sheaths from the nerves. And it's like electrical lines that are just crazy, and that doesn't grow back. But I wasn't feeling it. I was completely paralyzed. But they said in 3 months, those nerves will die if they don't have some connection. That's your window. So I went to work. And they asked me when I went in with the wheelchair, and there was only one therapist that knew about transverse myelitis. She had read on it at one point. No one there knew about it. So I was sort of a medical journalist.
People would come in and learn from you about it, I guess.
Yes, because it was so strange. And but I had a good PT, another God thing. I mean, people don't know about it, so your best thing is that they just want to get you in a comfort zone and then send you home. They asked me when I rolled in, what is your goal?
Right.
I said, well, I want to pee, poop, and walk.
There you Of course.
And the head of the operations there, he kind of jumped back, and then he just started laughing. He said, well, we know our goal then. So,
Did you ask God why? Why me?
no, I've never asked God why. Never. I've asked God, how can I do this? How can I do this? I don't believe that God punishes us. I don't believe that this happened so I could do what I'm doing today. my belief is that when things happen, it's how we choose to use it or not use it. And I just knew that he was there. He sent me there. And I asked him how I was going to do this. He gave me the people that showed me how to do this. And the therapist that was head there that worked with me so hard, she, the very next morning, put the wheelchair up on the little thing that's got the bars. She says, "You want to walk?" She says, "Let's see what you got." I grabbed the bars. And it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life, is to pull the body up, because I'm pulling a dead body up that I don't feel. But see, I rode horses, athletic, I had the upper strength, so it happened. And it gave me encouragement, because I got up regardless. And the next day, she hands me a walker. "Let's get up." Okay. I got up and I took 2 steps. I couldn't feel this, but it's a matter of training your brain to do what you don't feel. And that's kind of how that works. When they told me to do 5 more of whatever, I did 5 more and then 5 more. God did show me. He gave me that tenacity, because it would have been easier for me not to have done it. And then when I was going home, and I said, "I'm going to walk out of here." And they wheeled me down the day I was leaving in my chair, and which all that got fitted, braces, all of that. And when I got before around the corner, they said, "Here's your walker. Walk out of here." And I did. And I turned the corner, and everybody there was lined up, and they were applauding and they were crying.
Wow.
They gave me the strength to finish walking out of there, because I didn't think I could make it out of there on the walker, but they gave me that strength, and it was, every corner, there's been someone or some people that's given me more reason to push further. I got home, which was scary, because I was just pulling up on the walker, and if I turned, even do a light switch, I'd fall. The head of the MS clinic, which this is similar to MS, but it's not MS. And he sent a letter saying, "Your 3 months has passed. You've lost your window. Appreciate where you are and enjoy your life. And I'll see you in 8 months." I fell to the floor. And it's the first time I was really mad. I was mad. And I was hitting the floor with my fist. I didn't say, "God, why'd you do this?" I just was mad. I was mad at that doctor for telling me that. And I moped around I pitied myself for a few days. And then I decided that, why do I have to listen to him? So I said, God, here I go. What I used to get my butt whipped for every day, being hard-headed, finally paid off.
Where did the dogs come into the picture?
Well, there's a process, a big process. Number one, there also another thing that was told, no. Learn to walk with the walker, be happy. And I was in my wheelchair most of the time at the house for safety. Then I decided I'm going to put some crutches. You can't do crutches because you can't stabilize. Well, I got crutches anyway. I fell a whole lot. But I started walking with crutches. Then the PT that was in Vanderbilt, she goes to Shepherd's in Atlanta, which is the spinal cord center to be. She tells me where she's at. She says, I think I can get you in on outpatients. We loaded up the RV, and we stayed at campgrounds, and I went every day to Shepherd's Center. She graduated me to arm crutches, which is some of them where you saw me climbing up with the, and then they take my feet, people on each side, and they'd make my feet go in motion because I didn't know about my feet. I didn't know, I couldn't feel them. So, doing very well there, and I fell, and I broke my right knee. So now I'm back in a wheelchair for 3 months, non-weight bearing, and I had to leave Shepherd's. So anyway, I go home, not happy, and back up, and I had to start all over again because your brain starts forgetting Thor. And so anyway, I had Great Danes pets before, and they used to walk against my leg. I've always had big animals, horses, Danes. It's okay. And so anyway, I said, I want to get a Great Dane. I think, because when I'd fall, Thor, come on, you down.
Back up.
Come on. You don't get to do that. He's only 2 years old and 175-pound body. And come on. He's still in training. Down, down. Good baby. So anyway, when I'd fall with crutches, I couldn't get back up. I had no stability. So I decided to look for a service dog or one that I would train. And I was turned down most places because of age. Most places had a 5-year waiting list, and I'm like, I may not have 5 years. I've got to do this now. And I found this place in Ipswich, Massachusetts, that's all they do is they raise Great Danes for balanced mobility. Doctors, family, friends can't do that. You don't understand. You don't have that much stability. Well, I applied. They turned me down, and I kept applying. So after a little bit, they said, okay, can you be here and we'll interview you? Yes, I can. I had a major surgery that they were about to do, and I put it off. And my doctors were so good that they were okay with it because it took a lot of planning. It was a 6-hour surgery. That they were going to relocate my appendix where I've got a hole right here, and I put a catheter, and I get to flush an IV bottle of water, which is how the colon works now. And the transverse myelitis had damaged my bladder, the pelvic floor. 3 teams of doctors, and they worked on me for 6 hours. And another medical thing that when I go to the hospital, they all come and like, well, what is a MACE? What, you know, so there's that. So we put that off. We went. I interviewed. As a matter of fact, I stayed for a whole week. I don't know if it was just being Southern and they're not used to Southern people because they're kind of grumpy up that way. And
So you have to try out with the dog to see if there's a fit.
A fit and personality-wise, size-wise. But the important thing is that the dog has to choose you. You don't get to choose the dog. So they took all the information down. They studied. Went home. It normally takes a year or longer. 3 months, they called me, said, can you be back up here? And that I prayed for every night. I prayed to please let me get a dog. I did. 3 months, went back there, and they said, we're going to put you up in a cabin. They did, and Lady Ripple was laying there on the sofa. And we stayed together for 3 days, no one around. And then they came and they said, we're going to let her out. She's going to run and be free, and let's just see what she does. She went back out with her litter mates, and as soon as she ran with them for a second, she came back over, and she stood at the gate wanting to come back to me. So she chose me. And she became my best friend.
When you go out to eat, people look at you, according to your notes here, with pity.
Yes.
But the dogs help that situation.
I'm a very prideful person, which is not a good trait, but it is the truth. And used to, my hair was messed up, or I got something on my shirt. Got to go change, got to fix that. When you walk in with walkers and crutches, people try to be nice. They don't mean to look, but they do. And they wonder. And a lot of people will come over and ask, oh, was you in a car wreck? Did you have a stroke? And all you want to do is to blend and walk in and just be okay and not be that person. Because pity, I don't have room for that, and I don't want to feel like that when I go somewhere. And when Lady Ripple came into my life, we go somewhere, oh my gosh, everyone's just so busy looking at her and how wonderful she is and how well behaved she is, and that hopefully he will be one day. And and it became a pride. I am with her. I am so lucky that I get to walk in with Lady Ripple. And it was a game changer for me on my self-esteem. It was like, and now, I mean, I dress her up in outfits, and we do different costumes. She's got, oh my gosh, she's got more of a wardrobe than I do. But it's like dressing up my child, and I have so much pride in her. And when I fall, she picks me back up. Then, and I've had a good husband during all this too. I don't want to leave that out, he stayed and was there at all times.
And you used to go motorcycle riding even after the transverse.
Oh yeah, he got me a Can-Am. Now that was before, but he got another one that was a semi-automatic, and they fixed the brake and floorboards, so I didn't know where my feet were. So I rode. He and we rode bikes still. Horses. I got back on the horses. They had to help me up, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, we lived life to the best that we could, and
Tragedy struck him.
in 2020, when the COVID thing, which is exactly when she came home with me, he had some little mini seizures, and they had done MRIs and CTs of his brain some years before. And this time they did the brain scan, and the neurologist called us, and we were on FaceTime, and he gave us the news that my husband's brain had shrunk considerably, and he was in onset Alzheimer's. His mother had passed away of the same disease. This was his worst nightmare in life to ever think that could happen. So we had new challenges ahead. He went into a deep depression. He kind of stayed that way. I would have too. It got difficult those last 2 years. But he wanted to get a condo and be on the water and fish in Florida. So we bought one, and thought that this was going to really help diversify his thinking. And we get there, and he had been being sick. I get sick because I'm probably in the hospital 3-4 times a year. That's just a normal thing for me. I get so many infections. And now they want to do the plasma every 6 months. There's that to deal with too. So we were always so busy worrying about me getting COVID, and I wouldn't make it. And we got there, I started running high fever, and we automatically, okay, we got the infection, go to the ER, and they do the COVID test, and I've got COVID. He had been coughing for weeks. The doctor said he probably had it, and that's where I got it. He got worse. Long story short, we both ended up in the hospital, same floor, 5 rooms apart, and we were both very, very sick. He was doing better. They were going to start working him to go home with home health care. They said that I couldn't yet. So the 9th day, I did start improving, and they started talking about me going home. And I said, well, we need to go with the same agency. And they said, Miss Sandy, Johnny's not going to go home yet. He took a turn for the worse last night. They started pushing 45 liters of air with a CPAP. They sent me home all by myself with COVID, and still I couldn't breathe well. And I'm in a condo where no one could really take care of me because of the COVID, so that was very challenging. After a while, Corky and Mike came down, and they were a lifesaver. And they were taking me back and forth to see Johnny. They'd suit me up. Lady Ripple, we'd suit her up and go into the room. And they said, you can't get close. And I said, no. Climbed in the bed, and we usually would nap. Then they'd make me go home. And Johnny's 19th day, I was there, and I didn't like the way he looked, and I wanted to stay. They wouldn't let me stay. They made me go. I just got home, and I get a phone call. What are his wishes? I said, resuscitate. We both have said that because we're both very resilient. They said, it won't do any good. I said, I don't believe you. I think you don't want to take care of him because you're overworked. I said, you do whatever you've got to do until I get there. So they get me back to the hospital. And ironically, his son and he had been estranged for quite a while, as well as me being estranged from mine. When I was in the hospital going through this, my son and I didn't get to see my son through this, but he and his son had made their peace, and they'd come in to see him. So I called them. They were able to meet me at the ER, and they showed us where it wasn't possible. All I could do was put him through more pain. And so I had to make a decision. 2.5 hours before it ended, and I prayed for his life. It wasn't fair because he was always a better Christian, a better everything than me. He was just so much better than me. He deserved to not go, in my mind. And when he did, I was extremely mad at God. And I felt like God had let me down. The one thing I had asked him for, he didn't do. And I questioned my faith for quite a while. Thanks to several good friends, 2 of which were in my Bible study group, Terry and Joanne, and they didn't give up on me. No, you've got to stay. Thor, down. And they hung with me. They didn't do anything but just, I'd say, okay, I'm going to give you a time to come visit me and explain this or explain that. I said, I'm lost. And during this time, my son and I had been estranged, and I had prayed every night for God to soften his heart. Lady, down, to soften his heart.
How about a treat, honey?
I would do something, but I'm afraid to touch him. It says, do not pet, so I don't.
Some of you have seen the movie Mother of Dragons. I think that sort of suits me with these animals. But I prayed for my son's heart to soften, to at least remember the love and everything that we had, because I was a single mom and we were always so close. And I was so empty that I didn't think that would ever happen. And in the process of all this, my son makes contact with me. And he today lives there on the property, and he's everything. He's doing everything to help me because I was there by myself. And being without Johnny or anything and being in these conditions, it was pretty scary. And my son came back, and I realized that God said, Thor, come here, come. That God said, you don't get to be mad at me. Let me show you. Let me show you. And I knew it. I knew that's what he sent me, my son. He gave me reason to move forward. But I was still angry about Johnny. And through the help of these friends and so many of the friends that I see out here that we've been friends. Some of us went to school together. Some of us were 40 and 50-year-old friends that are sitting out here, and they're all in my life. But I was a selfish person for being mad at God for taking Johnny, because Johnny's future was not good. And it was going to be, he was going to have to suffer through the one thing he didn't want to suffer. And I realized that it was selfish of me, and that God did bless him. It wasn't about me. It was about him and God. And I'm sure that if God gave him a choice and said, okay, you can stay here, you're going to ride all this out, and you know what you got, and you can be with Sandy and your family, or you can come on home to me. And I know Johnny would have made that decision.
Would you be willing to take some questions or comments from
Yes.
the audience? If anybody has any.
Tell us about the story of Lady Ripple, that you tell the story of your adventures with Lady Ripple on Facebook.
Lady Ripple has her own Facebook page, in case anyone would like to look it up. And it goes all the way back to the beginning of us. And Lady Ripple tells her story and her perspective of what we do. No matter what we're doing, she has a different perspective. And, oh, yes, she's got lots of opinions about Thor. Her brother is very annoying. She doesn't understand why he cannot be as good as her, and that we should just leave him behind. We don't really need him.
Now, you raise Great Danes also, don't you?
The people that raised Lady Ripple, a couple of the trainers went on their own, and they wanted to start raising more Danes because they usually go to veterans first, and then the family of veterans, unless they have a dog that, like Lady Ripple, she's really very petite, as you can see, compared to Thor. And a guy she wouldn't have been very good with. She's extremely timid, as you can see. She likes to kind of stay back. But our personalities and our size worked. And that was another reason I think I got her so soon. But anyway, they couldn't start this organization unless they had litters. And they didn't have anywhere to do litters. So with Johnny passing, I had the garage, and we had offices upstairs. and turn it into a 2-bedroom. So they came to live with me for this past year, and they had a litter of 10 puppies. And so they've just recently gone back to New Hampshire. They're 9 months old. And it's time now for them to be with several trainers and do the final phases of matching them with other people. So yes, we had the 10 Danes there, and it was a way to pass it forward. It was a way to pass it forward because Lady has changed my life so much. And Lady is 5, and she's going to need to retire in the next couple of years, and this is where Thor comes in at. He will take her retirement, and she still gets to go, but she doesn't have to work with my weight or anything like that.
Gotcha.
First of all, thank you for being here. I too have transverse myelitis.
Do you?
And I had a similar experience with you. And my question is, why I ended up at a hospital, didn't send home like you, and I ended up at St. Thomas West. And they immediately knew I had transverse myelitis. So my question is, why didn't they drain the fluid off your spine? That was an option for me. And when that happened, then I too was put on steroids. So, and then had to go to physical therapy and all that kind of stuff. So were you given that option?
All right, how long ago has it been?
Let's see, this is 2023, a year, almost 2 years.
Okay.
No, it's been a year ago.
Okay. This happened to me in 2016. And it is idiopathic. They couldn't find a reason why this happened. They did drain the fluid from my spine in the ER, right there. It was all stat. They knew that it was one of 3 things at that point. In 2000, the transverse myelitis was only discussed or even discovered in it was in the early 80s before anyone has ever been diagnosed with transverse myelitis. So it depended on the hospital. St. Thomas was a good hospital for you to go to. And I'm not going to mention the hospital that sent me home. But they knew more with you from people. There are two other people that I had met that had transverse myelitis. One is laying as a vegetable because she didn't have the insurance, and they stuck her in a home, and so she lost all ability. Hers was in the C-section. Her arms do what my legs and feet do. If given the chance, she could have walked, but now she can't because she's been in the bed too long. The other one, she had been diagnosed. She was sent home from the same hospital. Same thing happened. And the next day, she was paralyzed, neck down. They took her back and started the steroids and all of that. Hers was a year sooner than mine, 15. We lost her 2 years ago. She was only in her 50s. This disease takes no prisoners. It will affect in different parts of your body. Doesn't matter who you are. There's no rhythm to it. Some people that have MS can go into the transverse myelitis as well. But there's a lot of us that is idiopathic, and they don't know why it happened. So it's really hard to do anything when they don't know why. I don't know, but with me, they knew it could have been one of three things. And that was the Guillain-Barré, the transverse myelitis, and the other one was a defix. Those were the three options that they knew that was happening, but it was only it just took time. And my spinal cord did not go into a remission for a whole year. So the damage, when the lesion, the fluid comes out, then you've got scar. So now you've got a spinal cord that's scarred. How do you know how long your lesion was? Some are just on one disc.
Well, they said I would never walk. I was paralyzed from my breast down.
Yes.
I had no feeling. And I still lack feeling in my feet, and my abdomen is still messed up.
Right.
But they didn't expect me to walk.
Right.
And I
Look
said,
at you.
yes, I will. So,
Yes,
yeah.
you will.
And they wouldn't let me walk with a walker. They gave me canes, and so that I wouldn't hump over with
Yeah.
the walker. And the physical therapy, and worked me 3 hours a day. It was really wonderful. But yeah, and I've had a remission just this year.
Awesome.
And, yeah, and I'm steroids again, so I just keep exercising.
Have you ever asked them about the plasmapheresis?
Well, they offered that to me, and I turned it down.
Oh,
It sounded too scary.
it is scary. You can bleed out. They had to stop mine several times. They bring bags of calcium and have to put calcium back in my body. I did bleed out twice. One of the times was on my way home a year ago, no, 2 years ago, while my husband was alive. And we got to the driveway and I started coughing, and I kept coughing, and all of a sudden, psh, all over the windshield. And I'm grabbing my neck, and I'm gonna turn around. No, I'll bleed to death. Let's get to the house. So we got ice packs and held it, and we did our own triage, but that's the danger of it. You could bleed out, but there's infections, and yeah, it's quite dangerous, but my attitude was, what have I got to lose? I just trust. Everything that has transpired, I just knew it'd be okay. I just knew it would be okay. And don't let anyone put an expiration date on you. Never. Keep going, because it's been 7 years, the end of March for me, and I'm still making some progress at some points. Don't ever give up.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to conclude with something from the last page of your notes that you gave me. The doctors cannot understand how I walk with feet that drop, one side paralyzed, the other partially paralyzed, and no balance to walk on my own. The procedures I go through daily to function with a bowel I cannot tell is there, a bladder that has to be emptied with a catheter, all the infections, hospitals, and plasma. God has put doctors in my life willing to think out of the norm, and now I am independent with 2 kids, Lady Ripple and Sir Thor, plus my son Brian. With God, all things are possible.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for joining us on Stories of Amazing Grace, and we'll see you next time, everybody, on Stories of Amazing Grace.